We are now live on YouTube.
All right, we will officially call the meeting to order at 3:01. Couple of housekeeping things as we get started here. Obviously, Sports Commission people, we did have videos on this meeting. So if for some reason one of the commissioners gets kicked off or anything, we will have to pause the meeting, let them get rejoined, and then we'll start back up once they're on there. During the presentation, if you can, stay muted so that we don't have any background noise or anything while Jeff and his team are doing the presentation. And then we are going to try to hold all questions to the end for his team. But obviously, if you got one you really need to know a question about, unmute and ask real quick. So obviously today we're going over master plan for the outdoor sports complex. Pretty exciting time for all of us. Something we've been working towards about a year and a half now, I guess, or pretty close. So great job to the team, to the fiscal court, everybody that's been involved with this. Jeff, your team. It's been a long road, but this is definitely something we're excited about. So at this point, I will turn it over to Jeff and let you start the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Jim, and Sports Commission, County Commissioners, Judge Clymer. We're certainly excited about presenting today. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we will get started. Young, just give me a thumbs up that you can see the slide there. All right, seeing a few. Okay. Well, as Jim said, this is a culmination of several months of work from our team. Our team consists of us, PFGW Architects, as the local lead design firm. We have on our team Hitchcock Design Group out of Indianapolis and Chicago as landscape architects and our recreation complex specialists. We have also on the team Pros Consulting out of Indianapolis as our recreation operations and maintenance and pro forma consultants, and BFW Engineering and Testing here out of Paducah as our civil engineer. And so this team we assembled was specific for this project, and felt like we gave the best team we could to the Sports Commission in the county. Just as we get started here, just a couple of things, and we do this about every meeting, and it's just a reminder of our project principles that were defined very early in the process. Principle number one is to become a regional destination for athletic tournament play. That is our driving principle in this project, as charged by the Sports Commission. Principle number two is to provide high quality athletic experiences for the local community. And principle number three is to further develop the unique brand and identity of Paducah and McCracken County. Those three principles drove everything we did throughout the whole process. Just as a reminder of our process, we started months ago in the middle of a pandemic with task number one, which was a research and analysis phase where we conducted site visits on multiple sites, analyzed those sites, did land use diagrams, yield study alternatives on how a sports complex could fit on those sites. We prepared a project program, which drove us to know what was needed on the site, and then we identified a preferred site. Task number two was completed afterwards, and this is where we prepared schematic design alternatives for the chosen site. We prepared drawings for that schematic design option and began preparing cost opinions on what this project could be. And then we issued the final schematic design report at the end of that phase. And that brings us to task number three, the master plan phase, which we are presenting today. We have further refined the schematic design from task two. We've assembled the master plan documents, and then we're issuing the final master plan report And that's what this presentation is reflective of. Just from the outset, we do have some project assumptions that we want to go over as we move into this presentation. We will refer to this as the McCracken County Athletic Complex, and that is a name we landed on early on as a generic name for this project. It is not the name of the complex moving forward. It's just the name that we as a design team came up with so that we could call it something during this process. Full build out of this complex is designed to include Stuart Nelson Park. The project can be phased if necessary, with that initial phase, if needed, achieving the stated goals of the Sports Commission. We have standardized the field sizes that are preferred, and those field sizes are provide for maximum flexibility for the end users. Simply meaning that we've designed the largest fields possible to provide the most flexibility for age groups. All the fields that we show in the master plan are synthetic turf at this point. That's how we've chosen to proceed at this point in the process. Another assumption is that the facility will operate at cost neutral. The county will implement an owner-operate model, contracting services where needed, and we'll get into that a little bit later as far as some operations options. Local league play will be accommodated Monday through Thursday, with tournament play on the weekends, Friday through Sunday. User fees and field rental rates will be commensurate with market rates. And the site will be designed to host baseball, softball, and soccer tournaments, with the possibility of non-traditional tournaments such as lacrosse and flag football on the rectangular fields. We know those are other revenue generating events to fill weekends when soccer is not filling all the weekends, if that's the case. So first thing we did was we looked at the existing facility inventory in the community. As you see here, we've athletic fields in the county inventory. If you look at the bottom line there with combined baseball, softball at 18 existing diamond fields in the county, that is the fields at Lone Oak, Heath, and Reedland ballparks. They're used for both baseball and softball, so we chose to represent it like that. And then 8 rectangular soccer fields at the county complex. The city inventory was 5 youth baseball, 2 teen adult baseball, 2 youth softball, 4 adult softball, and then 2 rectangular soccer fields, giving us that total inventory. Based on our core program that we developed early in task number 1, we determined that this complex would operate well and would need 6 baseball diamonds, 2 softball diamonds, and 6 rectangular fields. The field acres there are in the second column. There's parking requirements that go along with the fields to operate properly. And so that gives us the total core program acreage that's necessary at 44 acres. This does not take into account any site amenities that would be in the complex, such as public areas for park settings, playgrounds. This is just the fields and the parking. So that gives us that acreage there. Some of our design principles that we stated early on in task number 1 were the size of the park needed to be 60 or more acres to provide for the core program of 44 acres plus any amenities. And the amenities that we will get into later are crucial for a complex of this magnitude and this purpose. The amenities a lot of times are what bring people back and make the complex attractive to those who are looking to spend their dollars and their time with travel tournaments. Service radius determined by demand and outcomes. Site selection will be a standalone site near arterial streets. Length of stay would be 2 to 3 hours experience for single activities or an all day for tournament or special events. And that could translate out to multiple days in the course of a weekend tournament. Amenities would be a minimum of six athletic fields, public restrooms, ample parking, turf types appropriate for the facility and usage, field lighting, which increases the amount of hours you can run events and longer into the day, getting more games in. And then all amenities are ADA compliant. So we want to make it as accessible to as many people in the population as we can. Revenue facilities are important. We need 4 or more revenue facilities, which would be something like fields with rental and rental rates, concession stands, shelters, retail. Land usage design principle, 95% active and 5% passive. Programming would focus on active programming of all amenities. The maintenance standards would be developed and are important to know how to care for the facility as you move forward. Parking, we want to have parking that's sufficient to support all the amenities and the core program, but also in accordance with local standard details and like the Paducah City zoning ordinance has parking requirements that are necessary to meet. And so we would take that into account as well. Lighting for, again, increased hours of usage plus security at night. Signage, making the program and amenities easily accessible and findable for those who are from out of town. Landscape design should enhance the complex theme and experience. And then naming should be consistent with county policy, named after a prominent or historic person, a partner, or a landmark. Those things we see in other complexes in other communities. We looked at natural turf versus synthetic turf playing fields. And as I said earlier, this master plan takes into account synthetic turf fields on all the fields. There is a larger upfront cost for installation of synthetic turf. As you see here on the chart at the top left, cost of equipment and supplies and labor. You see the difference there between synthetic turf and natural grass. The annual maintenance costs for synthetic turf are comparable to natural grass. The biggest difference is that with natural grass fields, there is a delay in utilizing the fields after construction. You need 2 to 3 seasons, growing seasons, for the turf to take hold and be ready for play. If you use sod, there's one growing season that you miss out on revenue. With synthetic turf, you can install it and play immediately. The other side of that is the synthetic turf allows for fewer cancellations of tournaments due to weather. You don't get the pooling of water and the mud and all of that and letting the turf rest after a rainstorm. So you get increased play with synthetic turf as well. So while there are cost differences in both the maintenance and supplies and installation, there are benefits to both. We developed the programming list, and this is for a full build out of the site. Baseball field sizes, as I mentioned earlier, were maximized to provide the most flexibility. So while we have 6 baseball fields, and you'll see the layout shortly, it allows for multiple age groups to play, even down to T-ball, by simply adjusting the base paths and providing for a temporary fence installation in the outfield to decrease the outfield size. We felt like this was the best option to allow the most number of kids in age groups to play on the field and to attract more tournaments from different age groups. Softball field sizes, about the same concept. We have maximized those field sizes to accommodate more age groups. The multi-purpose rectangular fields are maximized as well. The standardized field size is 360 feet by 240 feet. That is the largest field size. And what that, as you go to the right in this multi-purpose rectangular fields chart, you begin to see the number of fields increase by age group. The smaller, the younger the age group, the smaller the fields get, and you can actually fit more fields on that standardized field size. So as you get into this U7, U8 soccer, you begin to look at 72 potential fields laid out within 6 of the largest soccer fields. So while 6 soccer fields doesn't seem like that many, they do allow greater flexibility in programming and tournament attraction. So this is the primary program elements as listed here that we developed early in task 1. 6 multi-purpose rectangular fields, 6 baseball fields, 2 softball fields, appropriate staging and warm-up areas around the complex for teams as they get there, restrooms, parking. We have an anticipated total at this point in the master plan of 782 parking spaces. We have field maintenance and bulk storage areas. We have walking trails, walkways around the park, site furniture, stormwater detention, which we anticipate to be, plus or minus 20% of the total land area. Those are all primary elements. Secondary elements, concessions and merchandising areas, maintenance buildings, batting cages, which also bring a source of revenue, soccer practice walls, ticket booth areas, vendor booth and vendor courts, playgrounds, splash pads, shelters that can be rented by the public and used on tournament weekends, a championship plaza to increase the big league feel of the complex, the perimeter fence around the entire complex, trail connections to the Greenway Trail, which runs just to the north of the entire complex, and then some sport courts that are multi-purpose. Could be basketball, could be pickleball, but we wanted to incorporate that in for public usage as well as just usage on the tournament weekends for maybe kids that are in between games. The hotel room potential for a fully built out complex. As you look at the different sports here, you begin to see with soccer, of course, the younger the age, the more teams you can have, the more players you have, the more games you can have going on, which then increases the total number of visitors for the tournaments and thus increases the number of hotel room nights. Flag football was an identified up and coming sport, periphery sport that could fill some of those weekends on the rectangular field. So there's some of the hotel nights for those groups. And that's one of the smaller hotel nights that there is per sport. Baseball, you see the hotel room nights there at 6,200. And then softball, due to the number of fields at 2, is at 2,096, but utilizing some of the other diamond fields, and then planning for any future phases that could expand that softball field offering would increase those numbers as well, bringing our total hotel room nights anticipated. And these are conservative numbers. These are estimates again. You look at the average percent of need of hotel rooms, we're using a 45.8% of the visitors would stay in a hotel. So these are very conservative numbers, but we're looking at total annual hotel room nights of 20,000 for this complex. We know that early on in this process, and the term heads in beds kept coming up, and it's a reflection of our transient room tax. The more hotel room nights we can generate, the more revenue that's created to go back into this complex and other things that the Sports Commission is doing. So the hotel room nights were crucial. We discussed briefly the operational strategies. And this, if you look at the image there on the right, this gets into a lot of what's involved in the operations of athletics complexes. Administrative management, capital project, document management, land use, facility, event management, financial. All of these things must be considered when looking at the operations of a facility such as this. The contract management, equipment management, human resources, which is attracting, hiring, and retaining qualified personnel. Maintenance management. We will discuss maintenance here shortly. Repairing things that need to be repaired. Making sure that the complex is pristine for each end user that uses it. Marketing and brand management will be crucial for a complex such as this. Getting word out about its existence, that we want people in this community. We want to attract folks from a 5 to 6 hour driving time to this to hold their tournaments here. Risk management. With any complex such as this, risk management is crucial. Insurance, handling claims, all the legal aspects of operations go into these operational strategies as well. Approaches to operations. We mentioned this briefly earlier. There's two basic approaches. There's an own and operate model and an own and outsource model. You see the pros and cons of each listed here. The pros of an own and operate is that the operations can be incorporated into the county structure. There's a degree of independence, or where you're not relying on somebody else, but you have the owner and operator are the same person. You assume total control of the outcomes. Maintenance can be integrated into existing maintenance, and you have financial control of the property and the outcomes. The cons is it creates a new agency. The smaller sites are harder to divide up responsibilities into the existing structure. You have a responsiveness to typical business practices and government structure. You have specialized maintenance, personnel, and expertise. This would be maintenance of the synthetic turf. There's a different maintenance process to that than with natural turf. Synthetic turf, and even with natural turf, there's a whole different process when it comes to athletic fields than just going out and mowing grass. So there's a specialized maintenance program that goes into that you may not have on staff already. Marketing locally and regionally can be difficult when it's an own and operate, and then balancing local and regional use to achieve outcomes. The own and outsource pros and cons, as you see on the bottom right. You can put out an RFP process that creates a competitive bidding process for those that would come in and operate the facility. You can align the resources and skills with the need. It's a proven model to follow. Limited responsibility to existing county staff, limited financial commitment to operations, and established profit sharing. The cons, stagnation of partners if they're not in concert. That can be there can be some hiccups there. All have to fully commit to the partnership. So both the owner and the operator have to fully commit. There's a degree of independence where this is a team effort here, and so the two separate entities, one owning and one operating. can be difficult at times. And as we know, most things can become political, and this is no exception. So those were things that we shared with the Sports Commission, and looking at this, these approaches to operations. And now we move into what you've been waiting for, which is the images of the master plan. What you're going to see first is a fly-through video that was generated by Hitchcock Design Group. This is a massive file. It's 1.4 gigs, just the video. So it may be a little choppy depending on your network connection speed. So I apologize for that. It will be available through other means if you need to see it again. I will narrate through it, just kind of highlighting a few of the general areas, and then we'll move into some still images that get a little more detailed. This is an overall shot coming down, kind of starting at Park Avenue at 32nd Street traffic light at Chip Wynn and Bluegrass Downs, or Bluegrass Honda, or Watermark Honda, showing the main parking area to the bottom left there. The softball fields are on the right. You see the grandstand that's existing at Bluegrass Downs. We anticipate repurposing that for use at this facility. To not only make it a unique facility, but to save potentially money of constructing brand new. And it really is a signature piece, we feel. This would be the entry plaza for the teams and the guests. You see the blocks there, the quilt blocks that are kind of a nod to our cultural significance here in Paducah. The Championship Plaza was just shown. This would be the crosswalk here going across to the softball complex with shelters. Beyond the shelter there are batting cages that are located adjacent to each diamond field. You see the grandstand on the left. This is the championship diamond field on the right. That's right in front of the grandstand for that championship big league field. This would be the vendor court on the left. Moving on around down the left field or third base side of the championship field, moving into the 5 diamond fields that are clustered together. Shade trees will be left where they can be, but shade is an important part of this for teams. You see the canopies and the trees for teams that are out here all day. They're looking for any shade they can get. We talked about landscaping importance, so we've added that. Permanent and mobile seating with the movable bleachers and permanent bleachers. Shade structures, playgrounds for children who are not participating. The backstops have been designed in such a way to provide maximum visibility to the playing field from the seating areas. This is moving over toward the Stuart Nelson side, but we're going to make a left-hand turn here and go back towards Park Avenue. These are 3 large shelters that we have and an additional parking area with the maintenance building there in the background. And then this is making the turn back towards Stuart Nelson Park. The large grassy area you see here is the approximate location of the dog park as it is currently seated. This area here with the 3 shelters would be Stuart Nelson Plaza. This would be designed in such a way to not only commemorate the history of the park, but the legacy of Dr. Stuart Nelson, who is a significant figure in Paducah's history. This is moving over towards the concession area and the central area between the 6 soccer fields. We have some green space here for warm-up areas and gatherings. This is turning and heading into the spray ground and splash pad area, concessions building. Again, more grassy gathering areas for community events and teams to gather, shade structures, and then the 360 by 240 feet fields, 4 along this southern edge and then 2 along the northern edge of the Greenway Trail. There's the multi-purpose sport courts there in the middle. And so hopefully, and then you see the road heading out. That's Stuart Nelson Park Drive that heads out, comes out next to Linwood, Chrysler, and Dodge there on the right. So hopefully that gave you a good overall view of the project. We will kind of walk through some of these still images now where you can get a better look at what we have. So again, for orientation, this is 32nd Street, traffic lights at Chipwin Motors, and coming in this ring road that comes around to Stuart Nelson Park Drive, then comes back out to, so there's 2 means of ingress and egress to this property. We do have Greenway Trail connections here on the northeast corner of the Bluegrass Downs property, and then one up here on the northeast portion of the Stuart Nelson property, and then another 1 or 2 along this whole Greenway Trail side that comes along the north edge of the complex. Again, just the shot from the air as we begin to swoop down into the project. This is the kind of the entry bridge as you come into the complex. That creates kind of that grand entrance as you come in, with parking immediately to the left, fencing and other amenities. Of course, this is the former Bluegrass Downs site, so we want to certainly build on its reputation and its former use as a horse racing facility, because that's a unique part of this complex. It's not only identifies it with the state of Kentucky, but just this unique complex here in Paducah. Again, the softball fields here to the left, the bleachers, the dugouts, paving, landscaping, scoreboards there you see in the right field and left field fence, foul pole area there to enhance the big league experience. This is the championship plaza that you probably didn't get a great look at in the video, but this is where at the end of tournaments, this is where the teams would come and do trophy presentations and just gather. The large blocks there are just provide for a multitude of seating options and just gathering places, and something for kids to climb on, because we all know kids like to climb on things. So just tried to create a high-end experience that's unique to Paducah. The paving patterns are indicative of our fiber arts in the community. Again, a good look at the grandstand from the backside. And this is just kind of very plainly designed right now. We really haven't got into the design of this. Just wanted to show it as a mass at this point. But you see the very welcoming area there, and then inside the building would be your command center for your tournaments, your events. There would be concessions, restrooms, check-in areas for teams, seating in the open air area of the grandstand, which encompasses about from here over, and then this enclosed area, potential for an on-site restaurant of some kind that still provide great views of the complex and the championship field. This is a view from the other side of the grandstand, showing the championship diamond field, the vendor court, which will be located in this area. And this is just a place where vendors could set up, and another source of revenue for this complex. I don't know of, there's probably very few. complexes of this nature that would have a grandstand of this size and with covered seating and even enclosed seating. So it's very unique to this site, and really is an amenity in this site. This will be a view from the grandstand looking out on the championship field and the plaza there. This is the cluster of 5 diamond fields and the associated amenities there in the middle. This is just kind of a zoomed in look at that with the shade structures, the playground. The 2 buildings you see there would be scoring booths, announcing booths. That was one thing that was brought up throughout the design process, is that the more amenities like that you have for teams to be announced, players to be announced, is attractive to teams and to coaches because it gives their players greater visibility and more of that big league feel. And then this is the Stuart Nelson portion of the complex. Again, with the large grassy area here, the approximate location of the dog park that's existing. This area here, as I mentioned, is Stuart Nelson Plaza. The history of this park is important, and we can't, and we don't want to ignore it. We want to honor the legacy of Dr. Nelson. We want to remember the past. As unfortunate as it is of why this park was created, we don't want to erase its history. And so we want to, right now at Stuart Nelson Park, the only piece that tells anything about who Stuart Nelson was is a small plaque that was erected in 2016. And we want to do better. We want to tell the story of the park and the story of Dr. Nelson so that more people know of his legacy. And so that's been a recurring theme throughout our design process. This is the concession area, kind of the plaza for the rectangular fields. As you see here, this field just to the north of the concession building would be the championship field for the soccer complex. Doesn't quite, we obviously don't have the grandstand over here, but we've created seating on both sides and kind of designated that as the championship zone for this side of the complex because that's important. That's important to the players and the coaches and the parents that come and spend their time and their money in our community to have that big league feel for this sport as well. Again, Stuart Nelson Plaza, we anticipate art installations, history, plaques or some other type of media that tell the story of Dr. Nelson to inform not only our community that may not know about him, but our visitors to this community. A bridge across an existing stream bed that needs to be addressed. Dr. Nelson was an educator by his vocation, working at Howard University for most of his career, was the president of Shaw University and Dillard University. So we want to play on that, and we had kind of envisioned this as like a book bridge across the stream here. But again, those things have yet to be designed and may change the more we dig into Dr. Nelson's life. Splash pads, spray ground area, shade structures. Again, just a great gathering spot central to this side of the complex. You see that this kind of different paving pattern here is simply that. It's a different material that connects this part of the park with the Stuart Nelson Plaza part. We wanted to bridge that that gap and not just feel like the Stuart Nelson Plaza was just stuck over here to the side, but we wanted to feel like it's still part of the entire park, because this is, there's a history here. And again, just an overall view of the complex. The slides you're about to see are some overviews of, and again, as we have worked through this task, these tasks 1, 2, and 3, we are only in the schematic design phase. And so all of these dollar figures you see here are schematic dollar figures. They're very, very early in the process. There has not been a lot of things defined as far as materials, amenities, although it may look like it on the rendering. Many of these things have not been defined yet. So these numbers are conservative, very conservative, and they are very early in the process. But we wanted to show this graphic so you can begin to see what it may take to develop each of these sites. And we're looking at them separately. We've kind of labeled them phase 1 and phase 2 here, but we just are just trying to separate the two sites so you begin to see how each site, because they're significantly different in the development costs because of what sports they hold and kind of the amenities they have on each site. But you begin to see, we've got design and engineering fees on there, estimates, contingencies, infrastructure, site structures, site elements, fields, which is the largest piece of the pie. Contracting and requirements, potential amenities is listed at 5%. And then Stuart Nelson, the fields, you see about the same thing, the same categories. Obviously the fields there is 38% of the total anticipated cost of developing that part of the complex. And again, these numbers are conservative, they're estimates, and these are not set in stone by any means. The next slide you're going to see is a little further breakdown of this, and I want to kind of walk you through this a little bit as we see construction costs and everything in this column, in this first column with the dollar figures, is full feature estimates. If everything were built and everything, if you had a bronze, silver, or a gold package, this would be the gold package. So this is what this number represents. This is the best of the best conservative estimates. We have contingencies added in here for design, for bid contingencies, construction contingencies, and just those 3 contingencies alone, total $4 million. And so you begin to see some of the breakdowns here. We've in the second and third columns, we have a high and a low range. So we've got some just trying to see what if numbers came in lower, if they came in higher, kind of what that range would be. And then in the far right side, we've got, again, the sites broken down in the Bluegrass Downs site, the Stuart Nelson site. The first column here with Bluegrass Downs is just the site, just the core program, and what's required to operate as a sports complex. The second column would be the amenities that make it better and more attractive to end users. And so you start to see the difference here. Very basic, higher end amenities that attract people and make it a destination and not just another athletic complex. And then the same thing with the Stuart Nelson site, kind of the basic infrastructure, and then added amenities that make it a special destination. And again, I'll say it again and again, these numbers are super preliminary and will be further refined as the process moves forward through design, development, and construction documents we will constantly be refining these numbers and as we further develop the design and make decisions moving forward as directed by the Sports Commission. The operational plan, there are operational strategies that go into a facility like this. Program zones are created and defined because each of these zones have different strategies for maintenance, different strategies for operations. You see the athletic zones, which would include the fields, the dugouts, concessions, restrooms, bleachers, the sports courts, batting cages, etc. All of the things that are specifically related to playing games on in this complex. The champions zones, which would include the grandstand, the restaurant and welcome center for that complex, both championship fields, the diamond field in front of the grandstand at the Bluegrass Downs site, and then the championship field just north of the concession stand at the Stuart Nelson site. The championship plaza, the vendor plaza are all part of that championship zone. The event zone would be kind of the areas that would be open to the public. The event plaza, concessions, restrooms, casual seating areas, the spray ground, Stuart Nelson Plaza, where public events could be held. And then the operational and common area, which would be the maintenance facility, the disc golf course that's existing in Stuart Nelson Park, the playgrounds, signs, trails, trailheads, hardscapes, parking lots, and walkways. All of those common areas that have the greatest access to the most amount of people. We talked about the organizational and operations structure of the park. This would be a staffing plan for the park. You would have a director over the facility. You would have a brand and communication manager. And then under that director, you would have recreation and events manager, and then a maintenance manager, each of those with appropriate staff underneath them and who report directly to those two managers. And so this is just an idea of how it could work and probably how it would operate best. But again, these are recommendations from our team. The maintenance standards, we discussed this not too long ago. This is a map of the facility with maintenance areas defined as a maintenance area 1, a maintenance area 2, and a maintenance area 3. Maintenance area 1 obviously is going to require the most amount of maintenance and upkeep. That's your athletic fields, your tournament areas, your athletic zones, championship zones, event zones. Those are the most visible to the public. Your maintenance area 2s would be some of the amenity areas, the walking trails, the lawns, the parking lots, some of the walking trails and connections to the greenway. And then the maintenance area 3 would be minimal upkeep, but still need to be addressed on a probably a semi-annual basis. And so that within the master plan report is probably 12 to 15 pages of these charts that are on the left that tell the frequency of and the maintenance operations that need to be completed in each zone throughout the course of the year, and what needs to be done and at what frequency. The operational plan also began to define capital funding source opportunities. Of course, the transient room tax is one that we know is defined. There's other opportunities for funding, capital funding. There are clean water state revolving funds for stormwater management. There's bond issues, grants at both local, state, and national levels, land and water conservation fund, leaseback options, Local, regional, or national foundations. Naming rights is another area that will be explored. Partnership development agreements, public-private partnerships. There's dollars that are available through recreational trails programs, and also redevelopment funding. And these are all ones that sources that we've identified as a team, that the Sports Tourism Commission and the county can look at and see which of these apply, which don't apply, which may be good fits for this complex. Operational funding opportunities for the financial plan. This is another source of revenue. User fees for the fields, for any rentals of shelters and the such. Concessions, parking fees, field permits, admission fees, tournament fees, and these are just suggestions. Again, official drink and food and equipment sponsors, field sponsors, scoreboard sponsors, official product sponsors. There's advertising revenue, Wi-Fi revenue, cell tower placements, program fees, capital improvement fees. Batting cages is a source of revenue. While volunteerism is not a source of revenue, it can offset expenses by having community members volunteer for some of these positions that are needed around the park. Special fundraisers, which could happen throughout the year, and then private management of elements of the complex, where that's some of those things may be outsourced. The 6-year pro forma that we looked at, as I mentioned early on in the first 1 or 2 slides, is that this facility is designed to be cost neutral. So we see in the first year of operation projected revenues and projected expenditures. There is a difference there of $336 projected, and again, very conservative projections, estimates based on research from other facilities and national reports that are out there. And just a note, these revenues assume a full year of operations. The second year, you see there's an increase in revenue, and then that moves on up each year up to the 6th year. Sponsorships are not accounted for in this model. We have chosen to kind of earmark the sponsorships to be placed in reserve for debt service and capital projects. With synthetic turf, there is a replacement cost. Synthetic turf does not last forever, and so that needs to be replaced. So money it needs to be reserved from the outset to begin saving for those replacement costs. And so you see some of the other assumptions at the bottom there. This is a potential naming right revenue chart. You see on the left the facility or the amenity that could be named, that could have a naming right assigned to it. The number of those units, then you have a low, mid, and high range revenue for each of those. We have chosen to base the last column, the total potential 5-year income, at the mid-range level. We just chose to do that. So that's what the far right side column, the $3.2 million is reflective of the mid-range numbers. So you begin to see the facility naming rights for the whole facility, the level there, the grandstand, the championship ball field, the championship rectangular field, event plazas, baseball fields, concession stands, the softball fields, the other rectangular fields. You see the different items that can potentially have naming rights to them, and you see the revenue that can begin to generate for the complex. And with that, that is our presentation.
All right, Jeff, thanks again, and great job by you and your team there. We'll start taking any questions. Anybody got any questions for Jeff or anybody on that team?
I may say, Jeff, and the whole group of the sports tourism people, what an outstanding job you guys have done. You've hired the professionals with Beck Flannery and Hitchcock, and the amount of work that you guys and lady have done has just been outstanding, and it's all volunteer. You brought your time and efforts and your expertise and knowledge with you to help form this out. And it's just, I guess maybe 2 years ago, a little over now, this fiscal court had just a desire and maybe a dream, and to see it unfolding now. You got some flesh on the bones, and to see this is really outstanding. And to think really that, our dream was to have our kids off of the landfill property playing soccer, and to have even a facility for our local children, baseball, softball, soccer, and which now it's even evolved, as we saw the numbers a while ago, to with the tournament play, the heads and beds and all that, creating really a strong economic development program off of this idea of getting our kids off the landfill. And so that's I just think really strong, and it's going to be, when you look at this, you start looking at what this is. I don't mean to certainly disparage anything that's in McCracken County or the city, but tell me what eclipses this within our county. There's just not anything comes anywhere close. And it's all being put together by you gentlemen and lady, and so I'm just thrilled to death about it. I do want to make a couple of points, and I'll shut up and let other people talk, but you get me excited, I just go on. But so one very important point I want to make is that in talking about Stewart Nelson Park, the county does not own Stewart Nelson Park, as we all know. And so we do not have a commitment or permission or anything else from the city to utilize that. And so the idea we have here is we have a hope that the city will want to join in and be a partner in this. I've talked to the mayor, even talked to him just today. I talk to him about every day. And to have the city be a partner, and I'm talking about hopefully they'll join as a full partner. The county has, of course, we know, got this acreage at Bluegrass Downs. We got it pretty reasonable. What it costs us $10 or something to do I think the contract was $10, if I remember right, for 60 whatever acres there is. And now we're even getting a couple more acres donated. So we own this property, Bluegrass Downs. The city owns Stewart Nelson. The point of it being, I don't want anybody to think, and certainly not the city commission and the mayor, to think that we are making big plans for their property that we have no right to do. What we're doing is trying to provide a visual image of what can be done. City could very well, I don't think they will, but they could very well say, we got other things on our mind. We don't want any part of this. Good luck with what you do. And we'll scale that back, and we'll be on our Bluegrass Downs property. I really think that's extremely unlikely that would happen. But I don't want anybody to think, particularly the city, to think that we're running over them trying to say, we're going to do this with your property and you're going to like it, or something like that. So that's one of the main things. as to the finances, it's exciting to believe that this would, after a full year of operation, be somewhere around paying for itself. I wasn't clear, and I'll ask you, Jeff, in a minute to maybe address that, whether we mean it'll be self-sufficient even without the transient room tax, or if you mean it'll cover the balance. There'll be this transient room tax plus whatever's generated that will cover the costs. But when you look at all those numbers and you look at this thing bringing in potentially, what did I write down? It was 20,100 room nights a year. And so, as we know, that those room nights, then we generate more income off of that to go back into the park. And we've not even talked yet about, those people going to eat something while they're here for the weekend. They're going to go to our restaurants. They're going to go to our stores and our coffee shops and that sort of thing. And so it's just all, I won't use the word overwhelming, but it's magnificent. And I guess the last thing I want to do too, and then let somebody else talk, is and you did well, Jeff, talking about this is the gold plate. This is not the silver or the bronze. This is the gold plate, absolute, most magnificent plan we would want. What is everything that we would want, and this is it. Now, that gives us then that top level, and then we start looking at, as we will likely need to do, either phasing in portions of this, because we can't afford those kind of figures up front. We'll either phase in parts of this project, or we'll have to find some revenue somewhere else to help to put it all together initially. But I don't want the message to be, did you see the county is going to spend $42 million on this place for kids to play on. We'll look at that. We'll see what, and of course, maybe Jeff, that you'd want to touch a second on. There is a absolute minimum that we have to have. You touched on it earlier, saying you got to have something attractive for the people that travel to the travel ball. They're not going to come if you don't have a nice facility and something they look forward to. And so got to have that bare minimum, or if you put, certainly 5 million or some smaller number in this, then you've lost that tournament play. You've lost the incentive for people to come, and you don't get the revenue, and the whole thing just, you have a nice local park for kids to play on. So that's about what I have to say. Thank you all.
Well, and Judge, yeah, and then Judge, you hit on a very key point there that we talked about from the start, was that we've got to build it a certain way and the right way to reach all of our goals, and our main, the main one being heads and beds. So, the Sports Tourism Commission, we've said from the start, we're going to start at this gold package, see what we can do, and put our best foot forward, because it does us no good to build something that ends up being something that the county or city just has to constantly put money into to keep it afloat, because it's not bringing revenue in. So that's a key point there for anybody that's in this industry, and I think some of our elected officials have even talked to other communities that said, man, if we would have built it just a little bit better, we could have had a better, better sports complex. We could have brought in more revenue. And that's a key fact for us, as we talked about that a ton, is we just don't want to do that. We don't want to, I want to use the word waste, but we don't want to waste money that's not going to bring revenue in. Anybody else got any questions for anyone, Jeff, for any of the team or the Sports Commission?
This is Bill Bartlam. I got one question, and I want to echo what the judge said. He did an excellent job of complimenting everybody on the job that's done. This is awful exciting. Has there been any studies done either locally or nationally about the future of these athletics? Are they growing? Is interest in them growing that it's only going to get better 5 years from now? Is it going to level out? Are kids still playing baseball, soccer, and those sports?
Phil, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I will. We use SFIA results. That's the industry on sports and fitness. It's an association that tracks the trends, ideally the purchases for specific sporting or fitness activities. So they provide an MPI as to what the market potential is, MPI meaning market potential. So we utilize that database, and we've also got our own past experience that we draw from as far as looking at what the potential is for each site. When you bring up the question as to where the industry is headed, there are several studies that have been done, including one that Jeff and I were talking about this morning about the sports industry, sports tourism industry being about a $49 billion industry. There were signs that that was going to continue to increase. And of course, that was pre-COVID. But we know that with COVID this past year, that has had some impact on these types of facilities. So we can also tell you that there are still tournaments that are taking place even under COVID. The tournament organizers are continuously looking for locations where the pandemic is not necessarily on an uptick, but rather on a downtick, to where they can have a certain number of people in gathering spaces. So the industry has spent the last year working to try and overcome some of those challenges that were unexpected and unanticipated. And it's their hope that they'll get it back to the exact same place it was before, which was trending upward and anticipated to continue growing. In fact, my family this weekend, today included, is in St. Louis for a volleyball tournament. They've been able to get that tournament scheduled and pulled off. And a couple of weeks ago, we participated in a tournament here in Indianapolis that had originally been scheduled for Chicago. So they are making those accommodations. And anyone that has their facility clean, the ability for social distancing during this time, for people to be able to participate, there are still people that are willing to come. So that is extremely promising to know that people are still seeking out these experiences even under the current circumstances. So we do anticipate that it will return to its glory from the studies that we've been reading.
Good. One more question too. You know, we generically think that we're at a great location. We're probably in the center from Memphis, Nashville, St. Louis, Louisville, even Cincinnati. Is our location, is it as good as we think it is, and is it as valuable as we think it is to attract traveling teams to come play here?
Yes, preliminarily it is. What's going to be important is that it be sustained through a quality customer experience when the tourists do show up for those tournaments. So if you can match that, which I believe the commission will ensure, that customer service is high, then yes, you do have a really good region. There are better pockets for participation in the region. Obviously, the larger metro areas tend to have the larger participation than the smaller cities in the more rural areas. But by and large, the 5-hour drive time that was utilized for this does have a lot of opportunity for draw.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And Commissioner Bartleman, you know,
Yes.
Chris and I sit on an organization called Team Kentucky, which works with other sports and tourism visitor bureaus across the state. And we just had a meeting with some of our representatives from Frankfurt. And the one thing that they're really talking about is sports is going to pull this state into tourism and really lead the charge as far as getting tourism back into Kentucky. And they actually bragged on us for what we've been able to do with the Expo Center with the basketball, volleyball courts. So really, as Phil said, as we pull from COVID and get out of this, everybody's kind of leaning on sports to say, hey, you're leading the charge, get us out of this kind of hole that we've been put in because of COVID and get people moving again, because, you know, us travel ball people are the crazy ones. We still travel and take those chances. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. And we may have to really bite the bullet and do what we need to do in the beginning. Interest rates are low right now for some 20 and maybe even 30-year bond issues. So, and I think you're right. I mean, I had a grandson on a traveling team for 6 or 7 years. And when you go to a community and have a good experience, you can't wait to get back there again. So you're right. We need to do it and do it right from the beginning and not tell them, well, if you come back in 3 years, we're going to have that problem taken care of. We need to have no problems when they come here. So we've got a lot of tough decisions to make, but it's good we have those tough decisions. And again, I echo what the judge said. This is a great presentation. You did a great job, and the layout looks great. And I know it has to be tweaked, but it's just exciting what the potential we have here and the economic boost it's going to be for the community.
Jeff, I'd like to ask a question if I could, kind of echoing what Commissioner Barberman was saying as far as the potential. And if I was looking at the report earlier, was it like 21,000 hotel room nights? Yeah, basically 20,000 hotel room nights. That assumes for when someone comes in for the tournament, they're only there for one night. And
Yes.
so if we have a tournament that is 2 or 3 days, that hotel room night number can go up drastically still.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think I failed to mention that in that slide. But yeah, that is assuming one night stay. So yeah, that number again is very conservative. But yeah, that can drastically increase. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunity for, to have a very nice facility for us to use Monday through Thursday, but then have a true economic driver for our area on Friday, Saturday, Sundays.
What's the answer to that question about is this park, is the idea that it, after 1 year of operation, that it would be self-sufficient without the transient room income, or is it that it will be self-sufficient with the addition of the transient room fund?
That was
So-
without the transient room tax and without any kind of sponsorships, correct, Phil?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's just the ballpark operating on its own. So that leaves us, the transient room tax for the sports commission, as well as sponsorships to, like Jeff said, put that to the side a little bit and kind of plan for replacing turf or, scoreboards, fencing, whatever that possibly could be down the road.
It's also exciting to hear you say the state is buying in on this and that they have as a top tourism priority as sports tourism. So, and that's a big boost because we'll need that help to help promote and maybe even find other ways they can help make it even more successful.
Yeah, and there's Team Kentucky, and then we're also a part of something called Sports ETA. And when that gets back up and running, we'll be attending conventions, around the United States that we will go and talk to these vendors to bring people into McCracken County, Paducah to bring in different things. And it's not just the sports we've listed. There's a group, and let's say they're East Kentucky, Chris, if I'm wrong on that, but they have the national lawnmower racing there, and stuff like that you don't ever think of, but that is a huge economic boost for them. And archery and just things that you don't ever think of because it's not the big name sports, but we'll be able to go to these conventions and talk to some of these vendors and bring them in, and having a world-class facility like this is going to be very attractive for people to come in. And again, one thing that's not on that presentation that we've talked a lot about is lacrosse, and it's one of the fastest growing sports. It's also a high revenue sport. I think Jeff's brother or brother-in-law plays lacrosse out of Atlanta, and they fly every weekend. So, again, you get to some of these high revenue sports where people are flying into Paducah and using our airport and then staying, those dollars really start increasing. So there's so much potential for this area.
I know that one of the things that you start talking to the promoters for the outdoor facilities, whenever it is the synthetic turf where it's not grass, where basically once it stops raining, you can start playing again, rather than with the softball, baseball, where you have to dress the field, dress the dirt and everything again. And it's a much better experience for the promoter and for the attendees if you have the synthetic fields on that. It's so much better for a user experience for everyone.
And to that point, Chris, when you guys visited Chesterfield and they were installing those synthetic turf fields, that's something that they had wished they had done from the beginning. They had a few years where enough bad weather had cost them some revenue.
And that's something that's, didn't get mentioned, but our Sports Tourism Commission, Jeff and his team, we toured 3 or 4 facilities, and it was a huge help just being able to ask them, hey, what do you wish you had? What do you wish you could have done differently? Everyone on mentioned turf. You learned some things about how they did irrigation. You learned about concession stands. So that was a big help for us, because you kind of learn what people like and don't like, and that went into this master plan as well.
And that also gives the chance of not canceling the tournament, the hotel rooms, nights, and all that is the big.
Yes, and that's a huge part. I mean,
That's
for
a huge
someone that
part.
does softball, I can't tell you how many tournaments we get canceled, and then we're trying to go somewhere else, or they don't want to tell us that they're canceling into the last minute. You can't go anywhere, or you go play on some sloppy fields, and it gets dangerous for the kids.
Well, and even your ability to start using the facility with synthetic
true, too.
turf, immediately start playing with natural grass. You're building it and then telling everybody, we'll see you in 2 or 3 years. How dejecting is that? So there's a revenue side to that as well. That needs to
And there's a facility in East Kentucky. I don't remember if you remember who that was, Chris, but they just built a sportsplex with some diamonds and maybe soccer fields too. I can't remember. And that was the first thing they said in our call was, in 3 years, this is going to be a great facility. That's a long time to wait for revenue and stuff to come in. I mean, that's a killer.
Yeah, I think it was Moorhead was the area that it was at. So they're like, yeah, I wish we would have done, so I think that, it's like, spend the money now or spend the money later. And so I think that the more we can do upfront to do it right the first time, it's going to be a better experience for everyone in our area.
Hey, Jeff, this is Eddie Jones. How
Sir.
how flexible, so notice the baseball field in front of the grandstand.
Mhm.
How flexible is that design well, I guess I'm wondering, is it possible to design something that has more of a multi-purpose field so that we could see a soccer game in front of the grandstand as well? Is there any flexibility for something like that?
That came up when we toured the O'Fallon complex in Illinois. That was one of the things that they had just constructed 2 turf fields, diamond fields, and laid in the outfield was an overlay of a soccer field. So they had that, what you're talking about. As far and Hitchcock and pros all agreed in their work they've done previously with athletic complexes around the region and the country. The big league feel is what you go after. That's what these players and the parents, if they're going to drop, hundreds of dollars, potentially, whatever that figure is, in a weekend and spend an entire weekend away from home, they want a big league feel for their children. The children want that, and field overlays, quite honestly, take away from that big league feel. Could it be done? Yes. Is it best? Probably not, due to that experience factor. It just, and two, if you put it in the outfield, look how far away it is from the grandstand. The experience as a spectator wouldn't be that grand. You would get a better experience at the championship soccer field at the other side, because you'd be closer to the action. You could yell at your kid more, and be heard. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does. It does. It sounds like the answer is no. Well, I just got to say the presentation's outstanding as well. I think you guys have answered the call. Thank you for your design work and for all your volunteer work. Thank you.
Thank you for trusting us with it.
Any other questions?
Hey, let me throw a bone to Steve Irvin down there too. I mean, he's been, I think you all would agree with me. Steve's one of those guys you don't hear much out of. He's just down there digging and putting out work and getting quality stuff done. But so glad to have him working on this thing with the commission, and he keeps me up to date and informed on everything like everybody else does. So appreciate him putting all his effort in.
Definitely. Yeah, Steve's a lifesaver for us for sure.
I hear from Steve a lot, so. But I do appreciate all of his efforts and the sports commission as well. Y'all have been fantastic to work with up to this point, and we look forward to continuing the relationship moving forward.
All right. Well, nobody's got any other questions.